So welcome everyone to the Radiant Torah with Rebbe Nachman, and insightful and hopefully inspiring teachings from all our tzaddikim. And this week is Parshat Kedoshim, Parshat Kedoshim, and we are going to get started in a moment. I do want to thank Dr. Eleanor Gudis, as always, for sponsoring this weekly class. May it be a source of merit and bracha for her family, and for everyone who is involved in sharing or learning the teachings of Rebbe Nachman and our true tzaddikim, and also for a refuah shlema for anyone who needs a refuah shlema. I'm not going to list names now, but please keep in mind anybody you know who does. Okay. So in this week's Torah portion, Kedoshim, Kedoshim means essentially holiness. And one of the things the sages tell us about this parsha is that in general, Moshe, this is how he would teach the parsha. First, he would teach it to Aaron along with his sons. Then he would teach it to all the elders. Okay, so all the heads of the tribes and so on. And only then would he teach it to the people at large. And the people at large could hear it from Moshe. Of course, it was the best way to learn straight from the mouth of the tzaddik and the prophet who learned the Torah from Hashem. But they weren't obligated for every section of the Torah to sit and learn directly from Moshe. If something came up, maybe they had an issue or they weren't feeling well or whatever, they could go later on and learn it from their leaders, their elders. However, this parsha, we are taught that Moshe was told to teach it right away. He taught it right away to everyone straight. Why? Because this parsha is the nuts and the bolts of Judaism. This parsha gives us everything that we need to do in Jewish context, in our laws and so on. Now, of course, it's a brief, like a legal brief. It's an overview. It doesn't contain every aspect of every law. It doesn't even contain details about many laws. But suffices to say that the nuts and bolts of our path are in this parsha. And interestingly enough, this parsha is largely about my favorite topic, relationships. And very often the favorite topic, not only of our sages and the tzaddikim and so on, but the favorite topic of women in general. We are very sensitive to our relationships with family, with friends, our relationships with Hashem, and our relationship with ourselves. And of course, Rebbe Nachman speaks a lot about this throughout his teachings. Now, I'm going to begin. Verse 1, Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe lemor. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, okay, Daber el kol adas b'nei Yisrael, va'amarta alehem kedoshim, tiyu ki kadosh ani Hashem Elokechem. Okay, so this means speak to all of the assembled children of Israel and say to them, you shall be holy. Because why? Because I'm holy, Hashem, your God. Okay. We are told to be holy because Hashem is holy and he's our God. If we want the relationship that we all want, at baseline, we all want this with Hashem, whether we're in touch with this or not. Every Jew wants this close, loving, warm relationship with Hashem. We have to be holy. So how do we be holy? So let's talk about what holiness is. So when we read commentary about the word Kedoshim, the root of Kedoshim obviously is Kedusha, and the Kuf, Daled, and Shin say a few of our sages, including later ones, that this implies separateness, because the word for a cult prostitute, male or female, is a kadesh or kadesha, and this shows that the root is about making a difference, making a distinction. How can we possibly have the word kadosh, kedusha, holiness, kadesh? How can we have that to be kadesh and kadesha? How can this such a low concept have the same root? So in general, in Hebrew language, in Lashon Kodesh, we don't find opposites using the same Hebrew root. We don't find opposite contexts. So upon exploring this, the only conclusion I could reach with my little mind is that these terms were said sarcastically. Okay. So if you want to say something positively, you say someone has Kedusha, they embrace holiness. And if you want to say they embrace the opposite, you use those terms. And we find those terms in the Chumash, in the story of Tamar, and we find them elsewhere all over throughout the Talmud. Okay. So anyway, sages say this implies separateness. However, Ramban explains that even so, even if there is a root that somehow refers to a differentiation, it's just simply referring to the separateness or differentiation between what is holy and what isn't. And it has nothing whatsoever to do with us, with you and me. Because in whatever we do, Hashem says or implies, we should find holiness, we should make holiness, we should embrace holiness. We are not like the nations who go to their church on Sunday or their mosque on Friday and so on. We go, or the men generally go, every day, 3 times a day, and holiness is throughout our days, throughout our places. There is no place for a Jew that is devoid of holiness, even a jail cell. Okay, the only places where we protect this concept of holiness, places that have a lot of overt impurities, such as a bathroom or so on. Okay, it doesn't mean that holiness still isn't hidden deep, deep, deep inside. Because why? Hashem echad. If Hashem is echad, Hashem is one, he's a unity and everything is Hashem, then holiness is potentially everywhere. And for a Jew, this is the takeaway from this verse, according to the Ramban. We have to embrace holiness everywhere. We can't say, today I'm going to be holy, and tomorrow I'm not. Tonight, I'm taking the night off from Kedusha. Okay, well, we can't take the night off. Okay, now, of course, this is to each person according to our own individual levels, so that we may need breaks from overt mitzvahs, overt Torah study, and so on. We all need breaks, but it doesn't mean that gives us license to spend the rest of our time engaged in something that's impure or that's going to take away from our personal holiness and that relationship we have with Hashem. It's a very big concept. We don't have monks. We don't have nuns. We don't have adepts. We don't have wise men who go sit in a cave all alone. We'll talk about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the Lag BaOmer class. We don't have that in Judaism. We are, in fact, the only path in which everyone is expected to attain some literacy in the teachings of our faith, and everyone is expected to find their connection to Hashem directly. Okay, very different than virtually certainly every major world religion. Okay, so What about the mundane things that we do? So I chose an example from Rebbe Nachman Zal. And this example is the example of something mundane, that is eating. Okay, so when the Ramban, excuse me, not the Ramban says, Nachmanides says that we find holiness in everything, even with what's permitted to us, we still remember our connection to Hashem. Rebbe Nachman attaches great importance to sanctifying our senses. And he teaches a lot about eating. He teaches about other things as well, but I happen to choose eating. It's something every single one of us can relate to. He speaks about the sense of taste and our desires, including the desire for food and our natural desire. Yes, many of us desire to eat healthy things, but we desire things that taste good to us. This is a normative desire of a human being. The Rebbe is not telling us to be ascetic, okay, to deprive of ourselves of any of life's pleasures in terms of totally cutting off from them. But what he is saying is to master our desires so that they serve us and not the other way around. So when we eat, included in the definition of what's kosher. Kosher means appropriate. Okay, what's kosher? We first have to have kosher food, says Rebbe Nachman. We have to. But within that definition of what kosher eating is, what appropriate eating is, what eating that is holy for a Jew is this idea that we're not eating out of gluttony. Okay. Now, we can eat things that taste good. We can eat things that are healthy or not, but we don't want to be a slave to this, because when we're a slave to this, we are giving up our sanctity. We are putting a back seat to this idea of Kedusha, to this idea of holiness. And that puts a back seat to, like it says in the verse in base and 2, in Kedoshim, to Ani Hashem Elokechem. I am Hashem. Ani Hashem Elokecha. I am Hashem your God. I am Hashem their God, meaning us. And the idea is in order to maintain this relationship, we have to remember at all times who we are. Now, unless somebody was brought up like this, and even if they were brought up like this and really sensitive to this, it can be very difficult. Everybody has a different nature too. Some natures pull more one way, some natures pull more the other. And of course, we have ups and downs. The idea isn't to be perfect. The idea isn't to be completely a saint. The idea is within your self-knowledge, self-awareness, and the realm of your personal powers at this stage in time, at this stage in your life, to do the best you can. Okay. And the best you can very often might mean more than you can think you can do. It could mean the opposite too. We don't want to jump too high. And this requires what? In order to know whether we're going too high, whether we need to slow down, whether we need to speed up. I'm talking about in spirituality and areas of sanctity. So the idea is we have to know ourselves, and we have to know ourselves through our relationship with Hashem. That is going to mirror to us who we truly are, because only Hashem loves us completely, and he loves us for who we are. And who we are, we're a portion of him. We have a nefesh elokis, a godly spirit, a godly soul. And that relationship is like every other relationship mirrors us to ourselves. That relationship, the relationship with Hashem, is the total picture, the greatest mirror, and it's always with compassion and love. That's why we make Kippur to do, by the way. For those of you who don't know, I think you all do, but for those of you who don't know, that means talking to Hashem in your own words about whatever's on your heart, on your mind and in your heart. Okay, now, let me find my attachment here. I typed up a lot of stuff. Oh, okay, I didn't mark it, but I think this is it. So the essence of holiness, says Rebbe Nachman, is the holiness in which every person must strive to observe the bris in purity. The bris means areas of sexuality for our purposes, okay? And that is, of course, the strongest human desire, the strongest physical desire for many people. And therefore, to achieve this is quite an accomplishment. Now, for men, it's said to be stronger than women in this day and age because the world is so mixed up. That's not necessarily always the case. However, how do we achieve this? What do we do to achieve this level of purity in sexuality? Very interesting. Rebbe Nachman says, sanctify the way you speak. Sanctify your language. Polish up your language. Bring purity and holiness to the way you speak. This will automatically have an effect on making your desires within the realm of what is good for you and good for your relationships. It's quite amazing, okay? The mouth is the gateway to purity. We know our thoughts, our actions are short. So when we speak and when we slow down, and we hear what we say, and when we speak words of Torah with each other and our friends, and these become the topics of our conversation, we automatically, if subtly, begin to improve in all these personal areas. Okay, I'm going to continue. There's so much in this parsha. Okay, so what makes us holy? So Rashi tells us, first and foremost, to avoid all the sins of immorality listed in the previous parsha, Parsha Acharei. We did not go into all those areas because we covered other areas of the parsha, but suffice it to say that those sins are again addressed in this parsha. So read both parshas and you'll see what they are. They're the sins of immoral relationships. And Rashi tells us if we avoid those, that's how we become holy. And Rebbe Nachman says if you want to make those relationships, if you want to make sure you're within the bounds of them, speak with purity. Okay, this is also hard for us. It's hard for as women to speak. I mean, we have a lot of speech. We're given, it says 9/10 of speech or 9/10 of the power of speech. So this is how women sort things out. But what are we saying? We have to listen to what we're saying. We have to listen to ourselves speak. Okay. All right. Now we're going to go to the next verse and just get my chumash. Okay. So we're going to go to verse 3, Gimel. Ish imo va'aviv tirahu ve'esh shabbososai tishmeru ani Hashem Elokeichem. Okay. It says, every person, every man, your father and mother you shall revere, be in awe of, fear. And my Shabboses you should observe. I am Hashem, your God. Interesting. Quite a two different ideas seemingly in one verse. Okay. Revere, fear, awe for your parents. Okay. This isn't kibud. This isn't honor. This is a different word. It's not like in the 10 Commandments. Honor your father and mother. This is tirahu. This is fear and awe and reverence. And guard my Shabbos. Guard all my Shabbos. Why? Again, Hashem's telling us, I am Hashem, your God. Okay, this is what he's telling us. So if we want to have that relationship, we now have two more things to keep in mind, and they are related. Let's speak about this relationship and let's speak about revering parents. So I'm just going to back up and really quickly tell you that the 10 Commandments are brief, they're an outline. And the more of the laws, like in these places in Torah, in Kedoshim and Acharei and so on, are more details of the outline. And then the Talmud gives us illustrative stories and discussions and commentaries of the laws. And then there are finely tuned details in the Shulchan Aruch, and then other sages go into great detail, such as the Chafetz Chaim and the laws of of guarding one's speech. So we have many outline levels. So if anybody's ever made an outline, I'm assuming all of you have, you have the big topic 1, then you have the big A, then you have the next topic, small one, number 1, and then you have a small a, and so on. And you get more and more finely tuned. So the Torah here is giving us hints and allusions to the relationship between these laws, which our sages have finely tuned and elaborated on for us. So how does a person treat their parents? In this day and age, that's not an easy question. It used to be knee-jerk. You showed honor and respect towards your parents. You treated them with reverence, a certain amount of awe, fear, and so on. Fear not quaking in terror, but a healthy respect for their authority. Okay, today we don't necessarily have that. And we have many fractured relationships between parents and children, very many difficult relationships. Nonetheless, we still have to behave towards our parents a certain way. And the primary example of how we behave towards our parents is given to us by, interestingly enough, a non-Jew. Rabbi Eliezer in the Talmud was asked, how does one treat one's parents? How does one show one's respect for one's parents? He said, go and see what Dama ben Nesina, a non-Jew in Ashkelon, did for his fathers. What did he do? What did this non-Jew do? So there was a missing stone or stones on the Kohen Gadol's breastplate. Okay, just some gems fell out. And Dama ben Nesina kept very valuable, beautiful jewels. And the price of these jewels that they needed to replace them was 600,000 gold coins. So you could tell that was very, very valuable. And the key to this chest, when the Jews from the temple came to buy the stones, this key to this chest was kept under the pillow of the head of Dama ben Nesina's father. He slept on the key. And Dama said, I'm sorry to the Jews who came to him. I know it's a big sale, but I cannot disturb my father. I cannot wake him up. We know that in Judaism, there's a law, you shouldn't wake someone up. It's called stealing someone's sleep. I mean, there may be times like you have to wake up your kid for school or somebody needs to get up and they requested you wake them up. But in general, we don't just willy-nilly disturb someone's sleep. And Dama ben Nesina had the common sense to know this. So what happened? Rabbi Eliezer said he received a reward. A year later, a red cow, a completely red cow, was born in Dama's herd. And this is the red cow that was used, the Dama that was used in the Beis HaMikdash for the ashes, for the special sanctification process and ritual, which we will, God willing, experience when Mashiach comes. We're going to find the ashes that were hidden away. And he was able to sell this calf for many times the worth of the jewels, because a completely red calf with no white hairs and no marks on him, who hadn't had a yoke put on him, was very, very rare, impossible to find. Those of you who read the Jewish news know that every now and then somebody thinks they have a red calf and then they're disqualified and so on. Even today, there are righteous Gentiles and others who think they have a red calf. What's interesting about Dama ben Nesina is that he said when he sold them the red calf, he said, look, I know you would pay me anything for this calf, but he knew that Hashem rewarded him for not disturbing his father. So he told the Jews, I'm only going to ask you for the amount I lost on the jewelry deal, the 600,000 gold coins. Okay. There was a sense of justice, a sense of inner righteousness. This is how we're taught to treat our parents, and this is showing us that we are rewarded in this lifetime for how we treat our parents. We are told that, as a matter of fact, we'll have a long life for treating our parents well, okay, with respect, with awe. Okay, now, the details of how we treat our parents, I don't have time to go into. If anybody's interested, I'll give you some of them. Maybe I'll give you some of them. Okay. For example, we have to be very concerned with our parents' honor. We should have treat them with reverence, and if we see our parents do something against Torah, we shouldn't say, you sinned. We shouldn't say, look what you're doing, that's so wrong. We should say, Father or Mother, doesn't it say in the Torah such and such, in a question, but with a question, so we wouldn't embarrass anyone. Today, we have many people who have parents, people who do know the laws of Torah, who have parents who don't. We have to be extra concerned not to embarrass, not to shame, not to make anyone feel that their son or daughter disrespects them. Okay, very important, especially today when the whole world disrespects their parents. Okay, we see this. Even the government today says the kids don't belong to parents, they belong to the government, they belong to teachers. No, not in our Torah. You belong to your parents until you're 120, you belong to your parents. Okay, there's the exception is if your parents tell you to do something that violates Torah. That's an exception. Okay, continuing. Now, this whole concept is linked with guard my Shabbatot, guard my shabbos. Okay, first part was revere your parents. The next part of the same verse is guard my shabbos. Why? What's the connection? So there are a few connections. The first connection is our sages tell us there are three partners in forming you, making you. Three partners got together. Who were they? Your father, your mother, and Hashem. And when you honor Shabbos, when you guard Shabbos, it represents Hashem himself. So honoring your parents is like honoring Hashem. Okay, as a matter of fact, little children, it's very important for them to not be their parents' buddy and friend, but to view their parents as their authority and to learn how to treat their parents with reverence and honor and respect and awe. And it's so important because this will set the baseline for how a child relates to Hashem later in life. This is going to set the baseline for it. We should definitely love our parents and love Hashem. Okay, sometimes it's difficult. Love can be a conflicting emotion, but the actual treatment and the actual feelings of awe and respect should be inculcated in our children. And some of the problems that that young parents have come to me with, it's so interesting, is they're from the generation, this generation and the previous generation, meaning right before, millennials or whatever they're called. I don't know the generation's names. There's a generation Z and generation millennial and whatever, but parents who think it's cute when their kids are rude or obnoxious or disrespectful to the parent, they laugh. And this is one of the worst things you could do to your kids, because it's not really about your honor. It's about inculcating in children these ideas of respect and these ideas of reverence. And today, because the generations have been brought up thinking that these are bad concepts, people don't have reverence. They don't have respect. They don't know what it means. And it's very hard to learn this. I have to tell you, it's extremely difficult to learn this as an adult. Better to give it to your kids now. Okay, now, what is this other connection? What is this other interesting thing about this verse? Is it puts the parents first and Shabbos second. Okay, puts the parents first even and Hashem second. What do we learn from this? Our sages tell us that there is even reason to believe, you can have the opinion that honoring your parents comes before honoring Hashem. It doesn't mean violating the Torah. It just means that in a way it's more important. Okay. And again, this harks back to how do we learn? How do we learn about these relationships with our parents? Also, why Shabbatot? Why Shabbos is in the plural? So the Zohar tells us something. The reason why it's mentioned in the plural, something interesting, a little tidbit I'll throw in here. And this hints to two kinds of Shabbos. There's the higher Shabbos, which is the completely spiritual Shabbos in time, in which the heavens, the celestial bodies, the angels, and us, to a certain extent, are having this complete holiness, again, Kedoshim, of time. And then there's the Shabbos, that's the lower level, which is how we relate to it in large part. Even if we try to relate to it at that high level, many times we're in the part where we're resting. Last Shabbos, I had 2 naps. I really enjoyed them. The lower level, the human level. For a child, it's delicious food. For us, it's delicious food too. It's having leisurely, slow, unrushed prayers. It's wearing nice clothing, our Shabbos clothes, so that we look nice, and we're showing again this reverence and awe and respect, and so on. So the Zohar is telling us that Shabbos is at 2 levels and can be experienced at 2 levels. When Mashiach comes, we're going to learn how to experience Shabbos like the tzaddikim. Okay. For now, we should work towards that. We should certainly try to find moments of that during our Shabbatot, okay, our Shabbos. Okay. Next, we're going to jump to verse 9. And I'm going to just quickly go through some of the verses and what they tell us. Okay. Verse 9 starts with laws that have to do with our relationships with other people. And we'll take a break at Yud Dalet at verse 14 with our relationship with Hashem sandwiched in between them, and then back to our relationships with people. Throughout this Parsha, the initial stages of this Parsha, it's showing us that if we want to have a good relationship with Hashem, we're going to have a good relationship with his children. Usually, if you want to praise a person, you say to them, look how beautifully your children turned out. If you want to show a person, and genuinely, obviously, not flat form of flattery, but genuinely, that you love them, you love their kids. Because when you love someone's children, they love you. Okay, maybe not in this crazy mixed up world in some ways, but in general. Okay. You love my children? Of course I love you, because my children are the world to me. That's how Hashem feels about us. It feels about each of us, about you and you and you and you and me. He's so crazy about us that if we love each other, he loves us even more, so to speak. Okay. So verse 9 is, when you reap the harvest of your land, you shall not reap the corner of your field, nor shall you gather the gleanings of your harvest. So this refers to the payos, the corners of the land, and the payos of the from the ears. And the reason why men grow their payos, okay, payos is a paya, okay, is a corner, okay, payot are corners. The reason why men grow them is to remind them of piety and kindness to the poor. There are other reasons as well. So we know we're commanded to leave the corners of the land with all the plants in them unharvested, so that poor people such as Ruth, who is coming up for the festival of Shavuot, we will read her story, was able to gather wheat for poor people. We have to take care of our poor. It's a fancy way of saying it. Next, same thing with your vineyard, and you shall leave them for the poor and the stranger. I am Hashem your God. Again, I am Hashem your God. Okay, so after all these laws of the poor, I am Hashem your God. When somebody's poor, today poverty isn't like what it used to be, where somebody was necessarily living in a cardboard box on the street. There are those people today, but we're talking about the Jewish people right now. We don't see too much of this. There's certainly charitable organizations, but poverty can take many forms today. And we have to remember, when we love the poor, we love Hashem. I am Hashem, your God. The Zohar says something beautiful. He says, when Hashem wants to do you a favor, he'll send you a poor person. That's the biggest gift Hashem can send you, is a poor person. Somebody who needs, somebody who doesn't have. Okay. Really a big gift. I'm so blessed to live where I live, where people are banging on my door, especially Erev Shabbos. It's not every day of the week, but I would say many, if not most days, or most, if not many days, collecting for themselves, for their families, for tzedakahs, organizations, for a couple that need to get married. I feel I have not, Baruch Hashem, I haven't lost the excitement from 18 years ago when I moved in, or it's 19 years? No, 18 years, because I'm going into my 19th year here. 18 years when I moved in, and the first knock at the door. Because where I lived before, if I wanted to give tzedakah, I had to go seek somebody out. I had to write a check. I mean, there was never a way to really give cash, except a charity box. And so I've never lost that excitement. Hashem loves me. Hashem's doing me a favor, just like the Zohar says. The more Hashem loves you, the more he's going to send you poor people. So keep that in mind. Okay, next. The laws continue. You shan't steal. You shall not steal. Okay. You shouldn't lie. You shouldn't deny things. You shouldn't say, I didn't do that when you did. You shouldn't lie to another person. You shouldn't swear falsely using Hashem's name. You shouldn't swear falsely at all, which profanes the name of God. I am Hashem. Okay. All right. Okay. So we see this. We have to be honest with each other. If we can't be honest, don't speak. Better not to speak. Very simple. Next. Oh, it's very simple. It's sometimes hard to put into practice, but really the concept is simple. Don't tell an untruth. Even in cases where halachically you might be allowed wiggle room with the truth, Rebbe Nachman says, better to not lie, even in those cases. Avoid it like the plague. Be honest. If you're honest with others, you can have a good relationship with Hashem, because Hashem recognized that honesty, okay, is a form of love. It's a form of Ahavat Yisrael, a form of Ahavat Yisrael, a form of loving your brothers and sisters. Okay. Don't oppress your fellow. Don't oppress anyone. Don't torture them. Don't manipulate them. Don't put them down. Don't rob them. Okay, none of you are going to go out and rob anyone. Also, if you have somebody who works for you, pay them that day. Okay, today we have different agreements, and it's fine. If you have somebody who works for you and you're used to paying them once every 2 weeks or once a month, or you have that's different. But in general, especially a hired worker, like a cleaning person, okay, poor person, they need that money right away. It means a lot to them. Don't keep it overnight. Give it to them. Okay. Don't curse a deaf person. Okay. Don't say something to someone, even if they can't hear it. This is a hint to us. A hint to us. Don't speak bad about someone, even if they're not around to hear it. It means literally, don't say something upsetting to somebody who can't hear you. And it also means figuratively, okay? Don't say something bad about your Jewish brothers and sisters. Better not to say something bad about anyone if you can avoid it, okay? We don't want to get in the habit. We want to sanctify our speech, okay? This is, by the way, ways in which to sanctify every area, every aspect of ourselves. Next, do not place a stumbling block before a blind person, and you shall fear your God, I am the Lord. Okay, so do not place a stumbling block. What does this mean? Before a blind person. So our sages tell us, don't cause someone to go off the rails and do something against Torah. Don't tell someone, you know what? It's okay. If you can wiggle out of that tax, go ahead, don't pay it. Or if you can do this and nobody knows, it's okay. Don't tell them to do something dishonest. Don't give anyone permission. Don't push them towards violating Torah. Don't just say to someone, it's only this once, go ahead. Okay. If you're in a position where somebody comes to you for advice and you can't genuinely give them the advice, you're uncomfortable, you don't know what to say, at least don't tell them the wrong thing. Say, you know what, I don't know. You're better off asking a higher authority than me. I do that all the time. I'll say, let me check with a rabbi for you, or here's his number. I don't want to put myself in a position where I'm going to give someone the advice that might cause them to do something that's going to harm them spiritually or harm them in any way. Okay. Next, you shall commit no injustice in judgment. Okay. And then it says, you shouldn't favor a poor person and you shouldn't respect a great man. You shall judge your fellows with righteousness. So most of us aren't judges. Some of us might be, we might be lawyers. We might be, there's one judge actually who occasionally comes to this class. She hasn't been here in a while. Okay. We have to not lean on either side. Just because somebody's great and famous and rich, it's obvious we shouldn't have bias towards them, but the same with someone poor. Okay. We shouldn't have bias towards someone just because they're a minority, just because they're poor, just because we shouldn't weigh things in their favor. In other words, reparations for work done is genuine, but reparations for someone just belonging to a certain minority just because they belong to that minority isn't necessarily the right thing to do, something to think about. Okay. You shouldn't go around as a gossip monger among your people. Okay, the word is rachilus, rachilut. It comes from the word rechel. A rechel is like it's like a peddler, but a rechel is like the peddler's sack. Don't go around from person to person spreading gossip, even if it's not gossip, even if it's true. Okay, don't go around telling tales. You want to be sanctified? Here's how. You want to embrace the concept of Kedoshim? Here's how. All of these things, here's how. The whole Parsha is telling us this is as important as not violating. Okay, we don't know if it's exactly as important, but we know it's pretty important as not violating the laws of morality. Okay, these are all listed in the Parsha. There's no point where one says this one's more important than that one. Okay. Don't be a gossip monger. Okay. It's very difficult, by the way, because sometimes when your feelings are hurt, it's very, very difficult to not repeat what has happened to you. Now, there are times where it's permitted. La toelis. There are specific times and the halachas are defined for that. And there may be a time where you need to vent. But in general, don't go around. Don't cause dissension among people. When you say something bad about one person to another person, or you say, you know what that person really thinks of you, you are causing a breach, not only in relationships, in Kedusha and holiness, because unity between us is necessary for holiness. Continuing, don't hate your brother in your heart, okay? That means don't hold a grudge. Let go of your grudges. One of the hardest things known to mankind. Baruch Hashem, we have, thank God, we have in our Siddur every night, prayers before we go to bed, and the first prayer, I encourage you all to say it. I do my best to say it every night. I don't say it every night. Sometimes I'm rushed, but I always kick myself when I don't. It's all about letting go of wishing someone should be punished. Letting go. Hashem, don't punish anyone on my account. I don't have a grudge against that person. I understand that that person was an agent of you. Whatever happened to me is from you, Hashem. And the reason, even the most baseline reason for not wishing another Jew to be punished for what they did to you, the most baseline reason is because then you could be punished for what you did to someone else. So I'm going to be forgiving. So Hashem, please act with forgiveness towards me. The Baal Shem Tov teaches a lot about this. You can look up articles and classes on it, as does Rebbe Nachman. Okay. And it also says you shall rebuke your fellow. You should give musar, ethical correction to your fellow, because you shouldn't, take on a sin that they've done, you should say, oh, you're doing something wrong. Rebbe Nachman says, probably not. Okay, today, people are too sensitive. And in the Rebbe's day, he said, people are too sensitive and you're going to end up causing them pain and anguish, which is worse than correcting them. Don't correct them unless you really are in such a position and you have such authority and you have such knowledge and wisdom and caring and compassion that you could sit someone down and ask their permission. Please, I see something and I want to tell you out of love. I want to help you. And even then, usually it's better not to do it. Sometimes you have to, but it's better not. Rebbe Nachman says that when we correct another person, it's like taking, he actually describes this also in the process of tshuva, but it's like taking and stirring up something and making it stink. If you leave the pile of garbage alone, it's not going to smell bad, but if you stir it up, okay, cause someone pain, you're going to cause them to feel bad about themselves. You have to be very, very careful. All right. Okay. Next. You shall not take revenge. Okay. I think I mentioned that, or bear a grudge against any other Jew. And you should love your neighbor as yourself. Ani Hashem. Okay. I am Hashem. You want to love your neighbor as yourself, then I am your God. You don't love your fellow Jew, I'm not yours. I'm yours, but not as much as I could be. Now, what does this all mean? So what this all means is to differentiate between how we love each Jew relative to their position to us is complicated. In this day and age, when you have people who are genuinely, truly harming the Jewish people, and we see this, unfortunately, we see people who want to tear down anything to do with Judaism, with our connection with God, and they'll work in politics or other ways to tear this down. Do we have to love those people? Well, we at least have to know that they possess a godly soul, and we have to try to love that about them. But when it comes to the person next door to you, or the friend who was rude to you, or the person who harmed you, but they're your fellow Jew, they're not trying to harm the Jewish people, and they do believe in Hashem and his Torah, and they're basically, whatever, they're doing the best they can, even though they've harmed you. You have to let go of that grudge. You have to find a way to love them. How can we be legislated to love? Such a difficult thing. Isn't love a feeling? So in Judaism, love is more than a feeling. Okay, it is a feeling. I'm not going to deny that Ahavat doesn't mean the feeling of love, but the way we love someone is by following the mitzvot related to that particular situation, such as not holding a grudge. And also the way we love someone is in how we treat them, is through action. So in other places, we're not going to go into any more of these particular verses. I just wanted to cover the bulk of these in terms of relationships. We are not allowed to have a grudge in which, say, our sages, they elaborate on this. Someone comes to us. I'm not going to get the tools right. Someone borrows a hammer, we ask someone if we can borrow their hammer. I don't remember the exact tools, whatever. And they say, no, you can't use it. And then they come over to you and they say, well, can I borrow your saw? And you think to yourself, well, they didn't let me borrow their hammer, so I'm not going to let them borrow my saw. Okay, tit for tat. I'm going to get them back. We can't do that as Jews. We have to bite our tongues and give them the saw. Okay. What do we gain from this? Aside from our relationship with Hashem, we gain something really priceless. We gain self-mastery. The first time you are able to truly say, I am not going to get back at that person. I'm going to tell the truth to that person. Whatever it is in all these relationship things. Okay. Because there are plenty of people who walk around not being truthful all the time. Unfortunately, the first time we're able to be act without guile, be straight, do what's right, just because the Torah tells us, because Hashem tells us, okay, we have taken charge of our desires and our emotions. We have gone not contrary to ourselves. No. We have gone absolutely in alignment with our higher self. And that is the neshama, the soul. We've done something incredible. We've done something that the bulk of the world, they don't even try to do. Look at Hollywood. Look at politicians. They don't even try to do it. Okay. Look at the ordinary Joe in the street. They give in to their desires to cause friction and dissension and disagreement and to nurture grudges and resentment and so on. That, by the way, if you want world peace, that is your portion. That's your start to world peace. Master your desire to get someone else back. Master your desire to not tell the truth. Okay? Master your desire to show your superiority over someone else. Master it. Master your desire to compare yourself to someone else and take away something from them, God forbid. Okay. We all do this on some level. We've all done this at some level, because even if you're just totally flawless, when you were a teenager, okay, that's what people give in to a lot of these. That's a big struggle for people. Okay. So Ahavat Yisrael is really not only about your relationship with the Jewish people and your relationship with Hashem, but it's really about your relationship with yourself. It's really about the ultimate in self-actualization, which is being a mensch. Being a mensch. Okay. So this parsha, law after law, continues, law after law after law. But these laws, which are, again, the way to sanctify ourselves, are truly, with Hashem's wisdom, truly the way to sanctify ourselves. They're not just common sense laws like don't steal. Anybody can tell it's wrong to take something that belongs to someone else. Our Hashem, our God, Hashem, our God, okay, says this is going to make you holy. It's going to sanctify you. And sanctification, holiness, Kedusha, really is something that it affects every aspect of who you are, and it raises you up. Okay, you don't have to go around and put on some clothes and go live in a monastery, God forbid. That's not sanctification. That's just separation. That's just, the world is a dangerous place. There's too many temptations, and I'm going to lock myself up and avoid it. I'm going to take a vow of silence. I'm going to not, I'm going to eat beans and rice every day, and I'm going to eat once a day. I'm going to fast. I'm going to beat myself with a horsehair whip. Okay, I'm going to live in a cold room in the winter and a hot room in the summer. That's not the way to sanctify yourself. Rebbe Nachman himself said that's not the way to sanctify yourself. When he was a little boy, he did so many things that he thought were necessary to purify himself. One of the things, we're going to go back to the eating, is that he would swallow food whole so he didn't have to taste it, because he wanted to conquer his desire for food. And he said that this harmed his health and he regretted doing it. And even though it's true, he lost all desire for food, he just only ate he only ate so he could make a bracha, so he could bless Hashem for the food. It's true, and to stay alive. Still, it's the wrong way. We don't do that. We take small steps in sanctification. We don't do what the non-Jewish world does. We do what's right for us as Jews. Okay, so when we feast, we have a feast, it's always with Hashem in mind. It's on Shabbat, it's on a Yom Tov, it's for a Sim, it's for a bris, okay, a Brit Milah, it's for something. Okay. It's to get together and to show love to each other also. There are many reasons. So everything, as the Ramban says, everything can be sanctified. Now, we have a few more minutes. I have so much more here. very briefly, we have a few more minutes. I do want to say two more things. The first is that there's a Torah commentary called the Hakasav v'Hakabbalah by Rabbi Yaakov Tzvi Mecklenburg. He was a 19th century German rabbi, and he's the rabbi of Königsberg, East Prussia. Okay, and he codified in a way several ways to sanctify ourselves in relationships, and they're very easy to remember. I can actually send them to you if you're interested. I like them because they're easy. One, your affection for others should be genuine, not fake. So if you don't feel affection for your fellow Jew, ask Hashem to help you feel affection for them. Find a way to feel affection for them. Okay. Two, always treat others with respect. As Rebbe Nachman says, be humble before those greater than you, before those who are at your peers, before those even beneath you, and be humble even beneath your most humble version of yourself. Have humility. Okay. Always seek out the best for others. God forbid you should ever want someone to not have the best. If you want the best for yourself, you want it for others, whether that's material or spiritual matters. Rebbe Nachman says true Jewish love is being happy for your fellow Jew who accomplishes more spiritually and gets to a higher level than you. That's true Jewish love. Okay, you're happy for them. You're happy, even if you remain at your own level, you're happy that some other Jew attained their spiritual greatness. Okay, join in someone else's pain, somebody's suffering. Show them you care and feel it. Greet them with warmth and friendship. Okay, it's a mitzvah, sever panim yafos, to greet someone with a smiling, warm greeting. It's a big mitzvah. Give them the benefit of the doubt is the next one. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Don't always assume that their motivations are bad. Okay. Rebbe Nachman, you want to learn about that, learn a Zamra. Okay. Assist them in even small physical and material matters. Giving them money. Oh no, that's the next one. Holding a door, buying a coffee, giving them a ride, whatever it is, assist them. Always give them a ride, whatever they need. If that you can, obviously. Next, assist them with gifts and loans. Give them money when you're able and when they need. And then it's interesting. He ends with something that's really related to the other, which is treat others with respect, which is do not consider yourself above or better than anyone else. That's the final one. The ultimate one is often the most important, because when you don't consider yourself better than anyone else, it means you're relating to everyone else as your equal, at least. And it means that as your equal, you naturally have an affinity and a caring for them, compassion for them. Okay. Finally, all of this is important, as is, in general, friendship. Having a friend. Even if, as Rebbe Nachman says, Hashem is your very best friend in the world, and I hope that he is, we still need friendship. We still need companionship and friends. They are vitally important to us, perhaps in this day and age more than ever, okay? Because we see what craziness is going on, and to have a like-minded friend who says, oh, the emperor has no clothes. You see that too? He has no clothes. It's a great, great feeling. Mashiach's going to come soon. We can see the signs of Mashiach. It reinforces positivity, and it reinforces our connection with Hashem. So I'm going to give you a few teachings, just a few. I had literally dozens of them, but I only typed up 3. From Pirkey Avot, which of course we started learning this last Shabbat. We're going to learn throughout the summer. Acquire for yourself a friend. Pirkei Avot, get a friend. Go find yourself a friend. Acquire, even if you have to buy one, go get a friend. Someone who's a good friend to you, who really cares, and you really care about them. Okay, Koheles, Ecclesiastes. 2 are better off than 1, in that they have greater benefit from their earnings. For should they fall, one can raise the other. But woe betide him who is alone and falls, with no companion to raise him. You want to connect with other people tightly, treat each other as your sisters, okay? Because, why? Because for that person's sake, if they have a hard time, you can be there for them, and vice versa. Now, Pirkey Avot again, Hillel and Shammai. Hillel used to say, be of the disciples of Aaron, okay? Loving peace and pursuing peace, okay? Loving mankind, drawing them close to the Torah. That's how you show love, is to the best of your ability, show what your relationship with Hashem and his Torah has done with you and share it with others. Doesn't mean you have to hit them over the head and preach. It's good to be a good person, be a mensch, show them love, okay? Talk to them about Torah when appropriate. He also used to say, okay, Hillel also used to say, a person who makes his name great causes his name to be destroyed. Okay, this isn't about greatness. It's not about fame, not about followers. It's not about people looking up to you. If that's what you're seeking, the opposite will happen. We see this all the time in general celebrity culture, okay? A person who doesn't add to his knowledge causes it to cease. Got to keep adding, got to keep learning. One who, okay, on. Okay, I'm going to skip that part. And then he also used to say, Hillel also used to say, and this is perhaps the most famous, if I am not for myself, who is for me? But if I am for myself only, what am I? And if not now, when? And with that, I'm going to encourage you to go out and acquire for yourself for a friend. That means a friend you already have. Show them love, show them affection, show them you care, treat them with honesty, and remember to treat them with respect, and that we're not greater than the next person. Everyone else has their own dreams and desires. And this beautiful Parshat Kedoshim shows us how to formulate those relationships which lead to holiness. And I wish you all a very good week. Tomorrow, we are having the Psalms for Life class. I'm so excited. It's Psalm number 20, another one of my favorites. And it's short and sweet. It's a half-hour class. If you can join us, it starts at 11 o'clock New York time. Okay, everyone. If I don't have any questions, I'm going to go unless there are questions I forgot to ask. Any questions or comments?
Just one. Hi, Rivka.
Yes.
I had a question. If the purpose of forgiving someone who has hurt you is actually for you, right? That's the purpose of it. That's why Hashem wants us to do that. It's for you to forgive them so it doesn't harden your heart.
Okay. So that's an excellent question. And I'm going to answer that because I think that this is a big question for a lot of people. I thank you for asking it. I think it's an archetypal question. So forgiveness from the perspective of someone who's been wronged is because Hashem says we have to love our brothers and sisters. And forgiveness is also about accepting that whatever occurs to us is through Hashem, and that other people are agents of Hashem. And this is an extremely difficult subject. It can be an extremely painful subject because when someone hurts you or insults you or does something wrong to you, naturally your heart hurts, especially if it's someone who you felt close to. And what Hashem is telling you is, I cause everything. This person has free will. They could have chosen to not be my agent. I would have found another agent, but they chose to be my agent. They did wrong. They may have done wrong. Yet at the same time, we are not allowed to hold a grudge or have resentment because it's from Hashem. So in terms of forgiveness, when we say with forgiveness, is this for our own sake? That's part of it. It's part of it. It's not a one-note answer. Okay, so partially, yeah, it's for our own sake because it repairs our relationship with Hashem. When someone has hurt us, And we are able to, number one, give them the benefit of the doubt. And if we're not able to do that, if their actions were terrible or their words were very brutal or unkind, what we can say is, there's a good part to that person. Unfortunately, for whatever reason, they chose to dump on me or whatever. And also, Hashem has decided that I need this particular event in order to grow. Now, if we can get to that point, which is why it's important to say the prayers before we go to bed every night, because by the end of the day, we are getting rid of that. If we're saying them with sincerity, we're getting rid of those painful events for that day. And what happens to us in this process, okay? Forgiveness doesn't mean that wrong wasn't done to us. That's not what it means. It's not saying, oh, well, what you did wasn't so bad. What it's saying is I have a deeper understanding of what this occurrence was. And it's also not inviting the person to continue to be abusive to you or harm you. Okay, we have to put that in there, because if someone harms you and they don't want to correct it, not only by apologizing, but by changing their behavior towards you and making reparations or whatever, then your object in forgiveness isn't always to resume the relationship. Okay, there's many separate areas to this. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, thank you. You actually answered, if they continue to do that, you don't have to continue the relationship, even though it might still be from Hashem.
That's right. Well, you have every individual case is different. Okay. Some relationships, yes. In general, we can try to overlook little things, that slights, insults, whatever. We can try to overlook it and continue the relationship as if it never happened, because we've also put our foots in our mouths and so on. But when it's something big and egregious and very harmful, and the person will continue to abuse, then you don't have to lie down and be abused, for sure. And okay, anybody else? No?
Thank you.
Okay, so everyone, I want to wish you a very good week, and take care, be well, and thank you again, Ellen. All the best, everyone.